keepers of the culture, Deborah
and CHERYL Hinton.
Today, our guest is DEBORAH Ricks, author of the book, Love Addicted, One Woman's Spiritual Journey Through Emotional Dependency. Come on back and hear about it with us. Welcome back. We're here with our guest today, DEBORAH Ricks, to share with us about her book, Love Addicted, One Woman's Spiritual Journey Through Emotional Dependency. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Essentially, my book is about my efforts to overcome my addiction to relationships and men. It's an effort to actually reclaim myself. I suffered from what I call father hunger. It started with my relationship with my father. I had a difficult relationship with my father, and I think that set the stage for my addiction.
Why did you really write the book?
Well, I just had this burning desire to tell my story. I believe that we're more alike than we are different. And I think that I'm not the only person who's suffering from addiction to relationship. I think we talk about a lot of addictions. We talk about the addiction to sex, overspending. We have outed many addictions. We've talked about the addiction to alcohol and to drugs. But I don't hear a lot of discussion about our addiction to relationships. Now, I just want to say this. It's not just women who are addicted to relationships. Men as well can be addicted to relationships. I think, however, that manifests itself slightly differently with men. I think whereas a woman could be addicted to a relationship and stay in a 30-year relationship and still be addicted. Whereas I think with men, there's a tendency to have more than one woman, where he may have a relationship at home, have several relationships outside of the home. But essentially, I just want to talk about this issue. I think it's important, and it's just as destructive as any other addiction. It's not as if this relationship addiction is something that's benign, and it actually has the ability to kill. I've talked to women since my book has been out. I've talked to women who have said, I've almost lost my life over a relationship, because women, we merge. We have a tendency to merge with our mate, and in merging, sometimes we lose sight of who we are.
Okay. Well, DEBORAH, I commend you for having enough confidence and strength to put your story out there. As I was reading your novel, I was so taken back. I mean, it's very, very emotional. And it must have been very, very difficult to write every page, because I could feel you on every page. I mean, I could put myself in your shoes, and I'm quite sure a lot of women who are reading your book or who will be reading your book will be able to empathize with you, as well as some who may not have ever experienced any of that or will admit to experiencing that can sympathize with your story and be able to face some realities of their own truths.
Well, I do hope so. It actually wasn't painful to do. There was some trepidation about being as candid as I was. However, I'm a journaler. I've been journaling since 1985. And because I journal, I'm used to putting my honest feelings and thoughts on paper. And, you know, I feel that this was divinely inspired. It wasn't something I sat down one day and I said, I just want to write a book. But it was something that just kept pulling on me, saying, tell your story, write a book. Tell your story, write a book. And it's been I would say it's been a very challenging journey. I started back in 1998, the summer, so it took me about 7 years to write this book. And it was cathartic at points. I talk about in Love Addicted, I talk about when I was 16, I was raped. And I put that out there because I know I'm not the only woman who was sexually violated. Some women have been sexually violated within their homes. And so they say 1 out of 4 women will experience some sort of sexual violation. Now, I've worked with battered women. I am also an attorney, and so in my relationship with women, representing battered women, I've seen all manner of abuse that women have suffered. So I just want to put it out there that you can overcome anything. You know, I was raped at gunpoint, and for I guess all my adult life, I haven't talked about it. It wasn't something that I needed to talk about with other people. My family knew about it, but I felt like put it out there and help somebody else face her truth and understand that though your body may be violated, nobody can violate your spirit. That's something that you hold on to. And so the story for me is, it was, as I said, that piece was cathartic, but essentially it was sort of easy to do because I'm a journaler. I write all the time. I write daily.
That's good. I write myself, and I find that writing on a daily basis kind of frees me of things that are on my mind. I can put it on paper and kind of get it out my head and that kind of stuff. So I know that helps. I keep saying myself I'm going to do a book. Now I'm saying I'm going to do one.
Well, go on.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm saying I'm going to do one. But I have a lot of writings all around the place too. I tell my children if anything happens to me, publish them.
Right. Yeah, well, I think if you have a story to tell, you have to do it. I believe that what we keep in us can destroy us. I believe that we all come here with a purpose, and I talk about that in my book, because essentially my journey has been about reclaiming who I am, because I believe all of us as children are damaged. Whether the most fabulous parents still harm their children in some way, and it doesn't have to be malicious nor intentional, but I believe that all of us suffer something as children. And so I think that as we grow up, it's our job to recover who we are and to understand that we're divine and to understand that we're okay, regardless of our size, our age, what happened to us. I believe that all of us are divine and we have a purpose. And what I wanted to share was that you have a responsibility to yourself to find out why you're here and to do whatever that is, to do it, because Spirit will give you that power to do that. Exactly. And I don't think that there's anything that God gives us that's too hard for us to do. Now, it feels hard. Of course, it feels difficult, and it feels like it's too difficult for us to do. I was talking to a friend the other night. She is moving from Baltimore to Arizona.
Wow.
And everybody wants to know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Are you running away? And she knows that she is supposed to do something, not just here, but she feels she's been called to minister to people. And yet she's not ready to surrender. And I told her, I said, until you surrender, you will not be able to do anything else effectively. And I sincerely believe that. I believe that we all have a purpose. And I don't believe our purpose is a small, narrow thing. I think, however, that we may have this huge purpose, and out of that, a lot of other things will come. Yeah.
So tell us about the title of your book, Love Addicted. I mean, it's a very powerful title. And I don't think a lot of people would see themselves as addicted to this thing called love. Or why would that be looked upon, or could it be looked upon as a negative thing? Or is it a very positive thing? I guess it could go either way. I found your title to be very inspiring, but at the same time, it was very curious.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really not love if it's addiction. Mm-hmm. I call it love addiction or love addicted because I thought what I was doing, I tried to love. I thought I was loving. But when I really, faced the truth about it, what I was doing was attaching myself to a man. I think, sadly, that a lot of what we do is not love. I think we call it love.
Oh, I know that's right.
You know,
I say that's the most misused word in the English language is love.
Right.
Because the things that people do and they say, but I love you, those, they don't go together, they contradict. You know, if you read what love is defined in the scriptures, it doesn't say anything about you hurting anybody. You're not selfish if you're loving. You don't take vengeance on people if you're loving, but people will say they love, but all that they do does not reflect love in any way. So
I agree. And so that's, if I put those two words together, because a lot of people will do things, including myself. I was in a relationship, I was married, and during that time I tried with everything in me to love my spouse, but I really hadn't learned how to love. I hadn't been taught. I didn't know how to give of myself. I didn't know how to surrender. I didn't know how to hold my tongue when I needed to and to speak up when I needed to. I didn't know how to give something that I didn't have for myself. I didn't have self-love. And so I think love, one of the best definitions I've heard for the word love, or this thing we call love, is M. Scott Peck, the author of The Road Less Traveled, said that love is the willingness to extend oneself for another's spiritual growth. And I think that that is the best definition of love, because when you think about what we often do, it's not, we don't, you know, if you're in love with somebody, you think, I gotta cling to them, I gotta hold them. Whereas real love, if that person would do better away from you, true love will say, okay, I'm gonna release you, I'm gonna let you go. True love will make you do things that are contrary or seemingly contrary to your own best interest.
because you put other people first when you love.
You put that other person first.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, on that note, we're going to go to a break, and we'll be right back with the Talking Drum with our guest, Deborah Ricks.
In the title, Love Addicted, when I hear the word addicted, I think of 12-step programs. Was a 12-step program involved in any kind of way? And
oh yes, oh yes. I've worked with battered women for close to a decade. And I used to work for the State's Attorney's Office Domestic Violence Program. And during that time, I used to refer women to all of these programs, okay? After I assisted them with prosecuting their abuser, I refer them to this program, that program, and many of them were 12-step programs. One day, Spirit put it on my heart that maybe you should go visit one of these programs and see what is really going on at these programs that you keep sending these women to. And I went and stayed 7 years.
Wow.
I went on a Sunday, sat on the floor, and was mesmerized by the stories. I'm a firm believer that stories heal.
Yes.
We talk about, we tell the truth about life, that heals us. Even if you tell one other person, at that time they call it the adult children of alcoholics. And my parents never drank. My father, in fact, was a minister. But I belonged in that group. And so, yes, 12-step program has played a role in my life.
And I can agree, because I've gone to 12-step meetings myself, and I have a sister that's in recovery from drug addictions. But I started going to the meetings with her because I wasn't a part of her addiction, but I wanted to be a part of her recovery. And what I learned in 12-step programs about myself and how to take responsibility for me and to know that there's a power greater than me and those kind of things have just changed my life. My sister used to tell me all the time, because my relationship one time got kind of rough and rocky too, and she used to always tell me, if you give him your power, then where's your higher power?
Wow.
And that saved me a many a day. Yeah, so I'm a fan of 12-step programs.
Wow.
Yes.
I think that for women across the board is the greatest challenge, is to hold on to our power.
That's right.
To hold on to our power. And even after this book came out, I am still peeling away layers of unhealed stuff, because we never stop.
Yeah, that's true.
And one of the things that came to me was that women really need to stay connected to other women.
Other women.
Yes.
You could have your husband, your lover, your spouse, your best friend that's a male, but there's nothing like another woman who you can just lay bare with.
Deborah, I have been reading your book. I'm not quite finished with it yet, but it really brought to mind of a lot of issues with me personally, as well with the women that I work with at a community college here in Baltimore City. And it's really a very important thing that you mentioned earlier, that women must stay connected to one another. And it has nothing to do with any gender issue. It has something to do with sisterhood. And no matter what our hue is, we still must remain connected, because we do lose each other when we become connected to who we assume loves us, you know, in a relationship. That sisterhood is really critical in this. And I've noticed that more times than not that it happens. And going into 12-step programs or any kind of women's support group, you know, all the stories come to fruition. Wouldn't you agree, Deborah?
I most certainly would. And the program that I used to attend was a women's meeting, okay? And not only did I go myself, I used to take my children. And I would take my children, first of all, because to have them with me, and later to learn, for them to hear things and learn things that they help make them make better decisions in life. You know, I firmly believe that although a lot of people thought that I was indeed an addict, because I attended Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and I still go, okay, so you might see me in one. I tell my sister I could have been, okay, because we are so close and we grew up together in the same house. So I don't know what it was that happened to her that sent her that way when something different happened to me. But she always called me cutie on duty. That's our cutie on duty sister, so wouldn't have been involved anyway. But our relationship, I said, even in her recovery, I could see how drugs had just disguised her whole personality. She's a lovely person. Yeah. You know, you couldn't know that in her addiction. But now we're like this, always doing what I always wanted us to do. I used to tell her that I wanted us to be like my mother and her sister. They would spend all day together and go home and call one another on the phone. You know, and my sister calls me every day. Every day, we speak every day. And I'm just grateful.
An addiction to me is an addiction.
That's right.
I mentioned in Love Addicted that your addiction may be food, your addiction may be overspending, it may be alcohol. I want to help all of us get beyond the shame of anything. We're all human beings. We all have trials and tribulations. We all have challenges. There is no perfect human being out there. It doesn't matter how good you look. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter where you live. You will know pain. You will experience suffering. You will experience loneliness. You know, and that's why I put it all out there, because I want people to know that it's okay. We're all humans. And when we hide, I think we cut off parts of ourselves. And so one of my journeys, what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to live authentically. I'm trying to live authentically, and I'm not going to let anyone stop me from that. Right. And so I'm not letting someone put me in a box and say, because you experienced this, because you have had more than 2 men, something is wrong with you. Because you, not in my case, but in somebody else's case, because you may have drank for 15 years and now you're ready to come clean. And even if you're still drinking, the fact is nobody, to me, is diminished by their struggles. We're here to, this is a human condition, that we're here to go through something and to become who we came here to become. So I just want to dispel some of the shame. I want to put it out there. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
And without the rain, how would we grow?
That's right. That's how flowers grow. That's how the trees
You're supposed to learn from it. It just takes some people longer to learn from it than others, and they have to keep repeating it. But the intention is to learn something through whatever happens.
And there are consequences to not healing. I have a sister who at 34 had a stroke. She had a stroke, and then she had another stroke after that, and now she's in a coma. Okay? She was 34 years old with an 11-year-old daughter, and I know, because I talked with her, and I was fortunate enough to come across a journal. She had one journal that we came across after she went into a coma, and I learned that she was struggling so much and trying to do it by herself. And I had begged her. She was going to a 12-step program, but she wouldn't talk, and I had begged her. I said, find a place where you can go and talk about your pain. Because some of the places she was going, she felt she had been going too long to now start talking about her stuff. But she had a difficult relationship with my mother. And that, I believe, she became hypertensive. She was struggling as a single parent. She was struggling, and she's this beautiful young woman.
And she internalized
it. And that's what most of us do. Yeah. She's not uncommon. I think most people do that. And people are sometimes shocked when I tell people stuff. They're like, like the book. I've had people say, well, what made you write the book? And the tone was a little, okay.
You were telling us about some feedback that you've gotten from people who have read your book, or, who have discovered that you've written a book. Some have been negative, some have been positive.
I could think maybe 1 or 2, and I think they were fearful. I mean, it's like, why put that out there? Because, when you tell the truth, it can make people uncomfortable. Largely, people have responded so well to it. I've had people one woman called her father. He had sent her a letter, and she didn't want to open it. And so she read my book, and she started sobbing. And she opened the letter and called her father and started working through some things with her father. I've had people, men and women both, say that they're just crying. And I didn't even know that it would have this impact. And even my mother, who's very stoic, my mother doesn't cry much about things, and she said, I can't even read your book without crying. Yeah. Now, I don't think it's because she was crying for me as much as I think she was crying for her own little girl, or whatever was going on. And I was really struck by that. A lot of people say they got in touch with their own pain. I talked to a guy today in the gym, and he said that it helped him to get in touch with some pain and to just know that he's not alone. Exactly. He said he doesn't usually read women's books.
But I know that it's a self-help book, correct?
Yeah, it is. It's a lot in there, and those 176 pages, there's a lot in there. Yes, and because what I wanted was, and I asked God to give me, to tell me what to put in there. I took out a lot. Because I wanted to tell a story. It wasn't about the people that I mentioned in there. I didn't want to out anybody. It's not about the people I mentioned. Of course, I changed all the names to protect the guilty. But there's a lot in there.
Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back to discuss Love Addicted. Welcome back to the Talking Drum with CHERYL Hinton, Keeper of the Culture, as well as
Deborah Pierce Fakunle.
we're interviewing Deborah Ricks, who is the author of Love Addicted, One Woman's Spiritual Journey Through Emotional Dependency. Deborah, tell us what's next with your book and any venues that you're going to be at. Are you going to do any conferences coming up?
You can contact me for further information about that at 410-358-6862. And I'm available to do talks and book signings at churches and organizations, and I really want to connect with the community, the addiction community. Because as I said, love addiction is just one of the addictions, and all of the addictions, there's a certain something that weaves its way through all addictions. So a lot of women who are addicted to drugs are also addicted to relationships. That's why a lot of women who are incarcerated now they may have gotten in there because of a drug problem or because they've been dealing in drugs, but a lot of times it's connected with the man. So I'm available to, as I said, to speak, and you can contact me at my email address is dricks6085@aol.com.
And can you repeat your telephone number again?
Sure.
Slower.
It's 410-358-6862.
Okay. And if I could just share one thought that's on my mind that I learned from my sister and going to meetings. Pain shared is pain lessened.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's essentially, that's my philosophy.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
Well, Deborah, we want to thank you very, very much for coming on to the Talking Drum to discuss your book, Love Addicted, One Woman's Spiritual Journey Through Emotional Dependency. We know that you will touch a lot of people, men and women, and especially younger women as well, those who are just entering new relationships for the very first time. It might be a good book for them to read as well. To help them along this pathway of relationships, because we all have to have relationships at some point. We're all connected to one another, as you said earlier. And also when we talk about your truth, that people should be open and more receptive to talking about what's going on in their life and not internalizing anything. It's a great thing, and we're so happy to have you. And we wish you much success.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you for joining us for this episode of Keepers of the Culture with your host, Deborah Pierce Fakunle and
CHERYL Hinton.
And we shall see you next time on Keepers of the Culture. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho.